Hey everybody, welcome to Let's Talk About Cannabis. I'm Mike Catherwood from the world famous KROQ. Over here to my left, the far left, is my man Edgar from 97.1, the New Guys morning show, 97.1 FM here in Los Angeles. And here in the middle is Dr. Drew Pinsky. Who has a question?
Is cannabis or marijuana stronger for us teens now than it was for, say, my parents when they were teens?
Yeah, that issue is getting more and more complicated almost every day. When I was your age, it was probably significantly less, 1/10 as powerful, if not significantly less than that, compared to what you're exposed to today. And then if you add in all the different horticultural changes that have, the science of the horticulture of cannabis has created these very potent strains, and now you've got wax, which are really orders of magnitude more powerful than anything that was around when I was your age, and I would argue your parents' age as well. So it's getting very, very powerful.
Dr. Drew, what is it that's making it more powerful?
They're learning how to make the plant produce more cannabis, and then they're able to concentrate it both for edibles and wax, things like that. Vaping, as you guys have talked about, where the actual amount of cannabis is super concentrated. And so even just the usual cannabis that you might just use sort of, get in a head shop or socially stuff that's not especially prepared, just it's almost even hard to talk about now because there's so many different kinds out there and different ways of doing it. But just some standard varietal it's literally 10 to 20 times more powerful than what was used when I was their age.
More powerful meaning more damaging?
Well, generally the more you use of a substance, the more consequences there are. I wouldn't make the direct relationship between it just makes you higher more easily and more closer to a toxic effect if you're not careful.
Could that mean that if you have to smoke less to get high, could it potentially be better so you're not inhaling as much smoke?
Well, that's an interesting argument. I couldn't argue with that, but the reality is that some of the concentrations are so powerful that it's very difficult to dial in just the right amount. So it really isn't the issue about whether you're damaging your lungs or not, it's how much am I getting exposed to. So, and again, I worry about more of that with the edibles, because you've been around people that do edibles. Edibles are really tough to figure out what you're getting, and people can easily, I don't like using terms like overdose because that's not quite right, but just take too much and have really an untoward reaction, an unpleasant reaction, and people end up in the ER that way.
And with edibles, it takes longer for you to get the high than smoking it, so you think you're not high, and therefore you keep eating more and more.
Well, or you don't feel anything until all of a sudden, kaboom. It's very difficult, yeah.
Isn't it stronger consuming it?
Yeah, you can get more in, but you can take a lot more in and then not have known that you've taken more in. That's the problem, and then you can't reverse it. Once you've consumed it, it's coming.
I know somebody who ate at least 2 cake pops, and they're just little too small circle, He ate 2 and he passed out and he threw up and he had to go home and all that, over 2 little ones.
I mean, think about all the energy and time we spend these days talking about things like chronic traumatic encephalopathy, head injuries, playing sports. We worry about every little head injury. That's a pretty big head injury to take a huge dose like that. It affects you long term.
And it's funny how earlier you guys were talking about sometimes, smoking weed or consuming weed is kind of seen as cool. I don't think there's anything cool about just passing out and puking in front of your friends. In your grandma's room? See, I don't know.
I don't think your grandma thought that was cool either. His mom would have killed you.
Yeah.
That's chocolate. That's chocolate territory.
That is chocolate territory, and it'll find you. It's like my mom had like chocolate GPS on it. Yeah? It was like, beep, beep, dial it.
How do you determine what you're getting?
Usually by the labels on it or the milligram dosage, but does that really?
That's part of the problem right now. They're not sure. There are regulatory organizations that are going to have to catch up with that and determine whether it's appropriate or not, particularly for the edibles. How about if you're buying it illicitly before? Now that it's legal, it's a little different. But illicitly, really, it was very hard to tell, wasn't it? Go ahead.
I heard that there's sativa and indica and hybrid mixes, different strains.
And all that stuff is changing all the time. And the legal shops are sort of marketing for different. I mean, it's a big business. Believe me, there will be big cannabis the way there's big tobacco. And my belief is big tobacco is probably going to buy cannabis. So it's going to be a giant industry coming after you to try to tell you how great it is. You know, so yeah.
So do you think like inhaling marijuana from like secondhand smoke is bad for you?
Great question. Not as bad as secondhand cigarettes, and typically it's not going to intoxicate you. I've had plenty of people that claim they can't pass a drug test because they were in a car with somebody. I've never found that to be actually what happened.
Or at Snoop Dogg concert.
Whatever. I've heard everything. I've heard it all, but it's really always because they consume pot. That's it. So.
Going back to the last thing about not knowing what you're getting, I've heard stories of teens buying marijuana and it being laced with some harder drug because they're not buying it from a trusted source. And that's
Trusted source like another drug dealer, a different drug dealer.
well, like a shop where they actually
now
sell.
you will have more legitimate, so to speak, kind of resources now. Yeah, you don't know what you're getting out there. You just don't. If somebody's out there trying to get you invested in their product, they might throw in some opiates or who knows what to try to get the higher high.
So like I have a friend and her mom is like hardcore. She vapes like a lot, and I know that like I don't think she vapes marijuana. I think she just vapes like water vapor, I think, or whatever, nicotine. But I think she really encourages her kid to do it because I know that she has tried it around her mom, and her mom didn't do anything to say, hey, that's not good for you.
The reality is that because adults do it is never a good reason, because we're full of, if not more, fallible than even kids are. And I don't mean to, talk down to like your kids, but my point being that that's absolutely not a valid reason to do anything, is because adults do it. I really wish that we lived in a country where you could say that the overwhelming majority of adults are perfect role models, but that's just simply not the case.
Great questions. Thank you so much. For any other questions, visit letstalkaboutcannabis.com. So that way you can get all the legit facts and make the best possible decisions. Thank you, guys.